Hey YouTube, this is Casey, and I wanted to take a quick video because I recently I inherited, for lack of a better term, an old bass boat, and it's one that you don't see a whole lot of. I've been scouring the forums and seeing what kind of information I can find out about this boat, and there's not a lot. All that to say, what I think I have on my hands is a late 70s, and I think it's a 1978 Cajun bass boat, in the two-tone brown. I'm gonna walk over to it here in a second and kind of go through it and show you what I've got, what I've done to it so far, and kind of what my plans are for the future. And I'd love to know what your comments and what your thoughts are about this whole entire process, and perhaps you guys can help steer me in the right direction or give me some good information and good tips. So let's walk over to the boat. We'll take a look at it and check it out. And I can tell you what I know about it thus far. So the long story short is that a friend of mine bought a piece of property, and the owners of this boat were moving out of state and already had too much stuff to take with them, and they did not want to come back for this boat. So essentially this boat was left with the property. My friend didn't want it, and so he offered to give it to me, and now it is sitting in my yard. Now I've already taken off the tarp, and taken off the cowl and the cover off the motor on the back, so I didn't have to try to do that single-handedly with the camera in my hand. But I'm going to try to mitigate a couple questions right off the pass, so you guys don't have to worry about asking them in the comment section. And one of them is, why do you have such a junky tarp rather than a legit one? And the answer to that one is because I don't know if I'm going to keep this thing yet. There's a lot of unknowns about the boat, and there could potentially be some deal breakers in the sky for me, and it primarily has to do with the motor. Now, one thing that I noticed immediately when I stepped in the boat was that the floor was rotted out. It's got a Mercury, two-stroke Mercury 850 4-cylinder. I have done a compression test on it. I haven't actually ran fuel through it or gone through and cleaned the carbs or done any of that stuff quite yet. But I have done a compression test on it, and we were sitting about 135, 135, and 140 on the very bottom cylinder. So compression is looking, from what I can tell, quite good. The starter clearly works. Now the wiring is a bit shoddy, but we'll get into the motor here in a minute. So, anywho, as I was getting back to the boat itself, yeah, when I stepped in the boat, when I was initially looking at it, the floor was just caving in on it. So, I mean, it was obvious right away that the floor was rotted out and needed to be replaced. And so, I've come through and I've ripped the carpet out, and just kind of giving it a look, see what I got here. A lot of my friends warned me that this flotation foam was going to be bogged down and super heavy, and that I found that was not the case. The stuff was exactly as it is right now. It's just very light and whatever. I don't know if this is, I'm assuming this is maybe kind of a budget kind of low cost foam that they threw in this boat. Again, I've also heard that about Cajuns, is that in some cases they were kind of manufactured on the cheap. These stringers felt pretty strong, at least up here. Back here, they've got a little bit of flex. If you push really hard, there's a bit of flex. In the back side of the stringer, I'm seeing some gapping here. Like, let me get this strap out of the way. Almost as if there's some gappage there between the stringer there. I can actually put my finger in there, which doesn't seem normal to me either. That you would actually have two pieces of a stringer that were glassed together. Maybe that was a thing, but it doesn't seem like it. So the floor is an issue, and the transom is an issue. which I know what a lot of you are probably thinking, which is, oh, Transom Work, you know, just get rid of the boat. Strangely enough for me, the Transom Work doesn't necessarily scare me. Pulling the cap off of this boat doesn't necessarily scare me either. Now, granted, I'm saying that without having done it yet. But I do have access to a place where I could, you know, I could park this in a barn and, you know, secure a hoist to, you know, a joist and pull the cap on the boat. And that's, if I keep the boat, that's primarily what I intend to do, is pull the cap, replace the floor. And I've actually reached out to Arjay about their 6011 Pourable Ceramic. And they've been incredibly awesome about communicating with me and giving me kind of a rundown of what would need to be done. So a major shout out to, you know, the guys over there, Arjay, for getting back so quickly to me with the information and the help. So if I do decide to keep the boat and go that route, then, you know, I will probably choose the 6011 over the Seacast, not only for the customer support, but also the price. The price is almost half of what I'd have to spend. And you can see the clear coat is kind of coming off here a bit. You know, got several drill points here that have kind of been abandoned as well. I don't know how the electronics are going so far. Again, it's not something that scares me too much because I've done a lot of that kind of work in the past. You know, the steering, you know, the steering cable on it seems to work well. So this turns very easily. The motor turns very easily and smoothly. You know, so we don't have a whole lot of an issue there. You know, whoever owned this before, you know, had a couple Humminbird units. You know, that one over there is kind of nuked. Camera's taking a minute to focus. So, but yeah, getting back to the motor and the transom, you know, if I even put a little bit of, you know, you can see that transom kind of bows and flexes a touch. So, and we got a little bit of, you know, maybe some minor spidering going across there in the back of the transom. So, but for me, the biggest question mark for this boat is this guy here, the Mercury 850, and whether or not it runs. There's a lot of really questionable wiring on this guy that I will certainly have to redo. You know, I assume that's a choke and a controller for the synchros there for the carbs. This has been disconnected, so I'd probably have to come back there and reattach. So it looks like to that point right there, which is probably really hard to see because it's dark in there. But yeah, this cable here is just disconnected, and it's connected to that plunger right there on the top. So I assume that's kind of like a choke for the carbs. But, you know, moving over here, you know, we got a lot of frayed wiring here down by, you know, down off one of the starter wires. So got a lot of really just kind of gnarly electrical tape work here. You know, this should have used heat shrink rather than doing a bunch of garbage like this. So, you know, again, it's something where I'd just go through and I'd buy new wiring and run new wiring and shield it properly and all that kind of happy stuff. But first I do need to, you know, probably bring a new gas tank over here, or a fresh gas tank. Run some fresh gas into it, run it, put some earmuffs on it, and just see if it starts and runs after I've kind of cleaned it out, cleaned the carbs out. But again, this is the biggest determining factor in this boat on whether or not I'm going to keep it. If this is a dud of a motor, which I don't have any reason to believe that it actually is, But if it is, then I'll probably just offload the entire thing for free. And just say, come and get it. You have a project boat with a, you know, I don't know, maybe I'll part it out, who knows. But we all know that the only value in a boat is the motor, really. But all that to say, let's move this out of the way. You know, I cleaned these up a bit, but I would probably end up replacing these seats. You know, all the pedestals come out. That all works the way it should. You know, back here, you know, was where one of the batteries went. Here's the gas tank. Now, I could be speaking out of turn, but I think what the previous owner did was, let me see if I can open up some of this lighting here, is I believe, you know, he modified and put in converted a couple of, you know, what at one point was a cooler into some live wells. The way that I understand these boats to be is back then they would use these as like a cooler. You could throw ice and beverages and whatnot in there. But what whoever owned this before has done is, you know, placed some valves in there, and I think tried to convert this section of the boat into a live well. He also tapped an overflow, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it on camera here, but kind of an overflow that seeps out to here in the side of the boat. So I think it's kind of like his attempt to aerate the tank. The only problem that I have, and it is certainly a question that I'm going to throw out there into the ether, is I noticed that under here, I don't know if you can see it. Here's what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to try to get my little flashlight out and see if I can illuminate things. I noticed at the top of this portion of the boat doesn't necessarily meet up completely flush with, if there's a dip there. And my question is, you know, if this is filled with water for a live well and you hit a bump and you get a bunch of water sloshing, obviously it's going to go run over top there and then down into the, you know, down this wall, except on the other side. And maybe that's not a problem because, I mean, I assume, you know, it would probably just go down there and kind of down the drain down to the back. But in general, that doesn't seem like great practice, you know, to just kind of flippantly having water spilling down there. I mean, I'm sure that's probably part of the reason why the floor rotted out in the first place, is not only the water above, but below. But I'd love to know your thoughts on that. Anybody who's got a lot more experience with boats than me, I'd love to hear your comments and just see if that's common practice, or if that's, or if that was just a bad idea to try to take something like this and convert it into a live well. And then I guess the follow-up question would be, could I just go under there and just glass that in better so that seals off? And that would be maybe potentially a perfectly good live well. Again, I'm gonna leave my questions to you, people of the internet. So I'll just do another quick walk around. You know, again, I assume that these were trim buttons that were installed on the deck. Obviously, I'd have to pull this carpet up and recarpet this or whatever. I'm still trying to figure out how I would end up finishing this floor. Again, I'm not thrilled with the idea of laying carpet down because it's just going to hold water. You know, and I know that marine grade plywood is supposed to not absorb a whole lot of water. It just doesn't seem like a good idea. So again, if anybody's got some cool alternative ideas that would not hold water down to the new floor that I lay down, I'd love to hear your thoughts. But yeah, so got this old powered anchor, which I would probably just pull off and remove. That doesn't seem all that great. I'd remove this as well. I mean, I'm sure that's, worthless at this point. It's got an Evinrude trolling motor on it. Again, if I keep the boat and get this water ready, I would likely, it's a handle operated one, so I'd probably replace that with a pedal operated trolling motor. Again, a lot of this stuff would just get replaced with upgraded electronics. Do a little bit of a walk around here. So this compartment is just typical storage. I've taken some of this foam. Sorry, the windscreen is kind of. So some of this foam that I've pulled out of here, I've just placed in here just to keep it. I'm trying to prevent as much of that from getting from the elements as I possibly can. And then yeah, here we are back to the instrument section of the boat. Let me tighten down on the aperture here so it doesn't blow out. It's a tight button. So yeah, this section here, the middle portion, this was also, got a, let's fire open that up. That's also got an old valve, busted off valve that, looks like it was used as like a bait, maybe a bait live well there. And this side here still has the battery in it, which I'm sure is beyond dead. Now again, it's gonna be almost impossible to see, but yeah, I can see down there, kind of right below here, they've placed a live well pump, and again, all this stuff could easily use a nice cleanup. Get like a nice braided cowl to go over all this. So that's the boat. So again, anybody out there that knows a lot more about these boats, I'd love to hear your thoughts. But again, when scouring the world of the internet, and especially YouTube, it's hard to find a whole lot of information about these Cajun boats. And there's something very cool about the idea of being able to get one of these back on the water again, even if it's a colossal pain. So yeah, the way that I'm figuring it out, and this is a drastic oversimplification, would be to pull the cap, probably put about $150 worth of material into the floor, replacing the floor. I figured out the Arjay 6011 for this transom would be right around the 200 to 250 mark for that material. And what I'm hoping is that if everything is good here with the motor, and I don't have to put a ton of money into that I could get this thing water ready if I'm doing all of my own sweat equity for, between $600 and $800. Again, that's not upgrading equipment or anything like that. That's just repairing the damage that's here, and and just kind of getting it touched up a little bit. But again, you guys may know a lot more than I do. You may know something that I don't, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. But I just wanted to put this out there because I know, again, there's not a lot of material about it. There's not a lot of content about it, and I wanted to be able to post something that kind of helps fix that problem. Again, this is a 16-foot. I think when I measured it, it's actually more like 15 and a half, but it seems like they run them, call them 16-footers. Oh yeah, I can go over the section over here too, really quick, and then we'll wrap up the video. Yeah, I made a little, because I'm not using a formal fitted cover, I built this little contraption to go here and connect over there, and it just creates a high point in the middle of the tarp so that it's just kind of any rain, weather rolls over the edge and not in the boat. But yeah, so I mean, some of the stuff that came with the boat are in here, kind of some old lights. You know, the other reason I wanted to pull in the cap is, you know, you can see in here, there's definitely some evidence of some mice getting in here and, you know, chewing stuff up and making little craters in the foam. So I'd want to get in there and definitely make sure that if any of the wiring got chewed up, that I could get in there and replace it. But yeah, there's some lights there. There's a replacement, you know, power. A flushed up, you know, power pole thing there, light pole. Receptacle there is a Transom Saver, which, you know, not doing the boat a whole lot of good, considering that the transom's jacked anyway. And there's the screws that I unscrewed to take the floor out. See those? This was a vent cover that kind of sat right there on the floor before I pulled. It's like a drain line. But again, there's nothing formal about it. It's literally just a hole in the floor that went down into that, you know, this dark section of the wood is, and it's kind of a head scratcher that Cajun did not actually put some like formal like tubing or some sort of conduit to drain you know, back to the back of the boat. I thought that was kind of strange, but again, maybe that was just the way they made them back then. But yeah, the rest of it's you know, the rest of it's pretty normal stuff. So here we are. You know, it may be a little bit of time before I dive into this. We're getting into the winter season here in Tennessee, and you know, I've at least done the compression test on the motor to make sure that, you know, the cylinders aren't, you don't have any seals that are failed or whatever. So that at least gets me to my next step of kind of doing some checking and qualifying on whether or not I'm going to keep this boat. Oh yeah, the last question that I'm posing to you and myself is that, you know, what do you do about this? About a clear coat that's just jacked. I mean, the part of me would be tempted to pull all the hardware off, grind all this down, rough it up, and actually just repaint it or recoat it in something. But I don't know what to do or how to do that without it looking like crap. So again, there's another question for you people of the internet. I'd love to know your thoughts. But yeah, so here she is, the old Cajun 16-foot bass boat. This is my project that I will, you know, hopefully continue to get to work on, and with any luck, I would have it done and ready by, you know, spring or summer of 2020. And if not, then I will likely just offload the thing as quickly as I can. Or if the motor's good and I don't want to deal with the rest of it, then what I'll do is I'll yank the motor, try to offload the boat with the trailer for free or next to nothing, and then just invest in another boat haul, you know, that does not have a motor on it, and see if I can't get another haul for under a couple grand and just kind of get out on the water. So that's all I got. I'm Casey, and again, all your comments are completely welcome. I'd love to know your thoughts. Hopefully, especially for you Cajun boat owners, you know, and again, I know that getting this stuff or finding this stuff is pretty difficult. So again, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and, you know, leave the comments below. All right, we'll see ya.